What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, this fall, third and fourth quarter of this year, the second half of this year, looks like it's shaping up to be an awesome, awesome time in boxing. And I figured I'd put together a list and let you know my top five fights that I'm anticipating. And it was kind of hard to make this list because there's some really good fights coming up, but I feel I've placed the top five that I want to see personally. I only use confirmed fights. I didn't use fights that are still in talks or in negotiations. So things like Amir Khan and Devin Alexander weren't included in this list because those aren't official fights that are actually announced. They're likely to happen, but they're not necessarily confirmed, set in stone. So these are fights that are already signed, sealed, and delivered and taking place. And I figured I would give you my list and just briefly explain why I feel that it makes a list and that kind of thing. So without further ado, number five, David Haye versus Tyson Fury. Um, I really want to put this higher on the list, but there were so many great fights that I personally want to see. I had to put it at number five. This is a hell of a fight. The reason I put it at number five is because it's a fight I definitely want to see. Two heavyweights. The heavyweight division has been pretty stagnant in recent memory. Definitely not like the 80s or early 90s or whatnot. With the Tommy Morrisons and the Foremans and Lennox Lewis's and Mike Tyson's. The heavyweight division has seemed pretty dismal with the exception of the Klitschko's. And it's been getting interesting. You got people like Deontay Wilder, Seth Mitchell, Jonathan Banks, just some emerging talent. David Haye and Tyson Fury. They also were placing David Price on that upcoming heavyweights list, and it doesn't look like he's panning out too well. He was defeated two times by Tony Thompson. The first one was supposed to be a fluke, and Tony Thompson repeated history and stopped David Price again. So David Haye versus Tyson Fury. The reason I want to see it is because this is the UK's hope. David Price has already been kind of knocked off as someone who doesn't have the best punch resistancy. Tyson Fury has a solid resume. He's beaten the guys and the challenges he's been put in front of, and realistically, he's an entertaining character. He talks a lot of shit, talks a lot of trash. David Haye, also a fighter who has no problem speaking his mind, who's been in there with the Klitschko's. And from the press conference to the actual fight, I just see this being a pretty explosive fight with two guys and two egos, no pun intended. Anytime you have egos like this in the sport of boxing, it usually makes for a competitive match. I mean, I don't think either one of these guys want to blemish their record or want to lose to the other person, especially with the amount of shit they're talking. I.e., think of Paulie Malignaggi and Adrian Broner. Um, Both guys talked a lot of trash pre-fight, and when we actually got the fight, it was a competitive fight. Adrian Broner shined in spots, mid to late rounds, and I would say Paulie Malignaggi shined early. So this is the same thing with pounds added. I mean, these are heavyweights, so I really see someone getting stopped. Had to put it on the list. In at number four, Manny Pacquiao and Brandon Rios. Now, I really want to see this fight. I did put it at number four, mainly because both fighters are off of losses. Brandon Rios lost to Mike Alvarado in the rematch via decision. And as you all know, Pacquiao got knocked out by Marquez in his fourth bout with Marquez in December. Now, I put it in at number four just based on mostly that, the fact that both fighters are off losses. So I can't put this fight above some of the other fights that you'll see later on the list because the other fights, the opponents are on win streaks and they have a lot more momentum in terms of going into the fight. Pacquiao has not looked great in his recent fight. In fact, he's off back-to-back losses. Timothy Bradley beat him via decision, controversially or not, and then he got knocked out by Marquez. Brandon Rios is moving up in weight too. So on paper, this isn't as competitive stylistically. If you look at on paper, Pacquiao should blow Brandon Rios out of the water based on their styles, Pacquiao's speed, power, and movement. But what makes this interesting and makes this at number four for me is the fact that we don't know what Pacquiao is going to arrive in Macau, China. Is this going to be a vintage Pacquiao? Is he going to be re energized after getting knocked out and just be completely destructive? Because for those of you who don't know, Pacquiao has not had a knockout since 2009, and that was to Miguel Cotto. That was a TKO. Um, so he's had issues being distracted outside of the boxing ring, and I'm curious to what Pacquiao is going to show up. Is it going to be a reinvigorated, re-energized Pacquiao who's trying to rebuild his career and completely annihilate Brandon Rios, or is his punch resistancy, is his chin gone after getting brutally knocked out in his last fight? And Brandon Rios, he's an entertaining fighter. He brings it. He gets hit, but he comes to fight. He has heart. He has chin, and I'm anxious to see where it'll end up when these two paths collide. In at number three, Marquez and Bradley. Now I put this over Pacquiao and Rios basically for what I said before. Marquez is off of a win, an incredible win, like a career-defining win. He fought Pacquiao three other times. A lot of people thought he got robbed in some of those. He had a draw in the first fight, and he did the unthinkable. Even though he has not knocked Pacquiao down even in any of their fights, in the fourth fight he knocked Pacquiao down first, and he knocked him out when he was in trouble. So Marquez, his confidence has to be skyrocketed. Bradley, Timothy Bradley, is coming off of a tough fight against Ruslan Provodnikov. So I want to see where his head's at. He fought stupid. He didn't fight a good fight. He fought with a chip on his shoulder based on the Pacquiao backlash. We all know, I covered this. He didn't fight like his traditional self. So I wonder where his head's at, because I know he gained some fans based on his reckless fighting style and showing that he had a chin in the Ruslan Provodnikov fight. But how much in the same year, how much did that Ruslan Provodnikov tough fight, even though he won, how much did it take out of him? Has he had enough time to recover and that kind of thing? So this is a very intriguing matchup. Also because Marquez and Bradley are two of the most incredible thinkers in the sport of boxing. They both have very solid resumes. They're both thinkers. Bradley has advantages in speed, I would say. Marquez has advantages. I think he's a better counterpuncher. And also, I think Marquez hits harder. So it's going to be interesting to see the two mix up, because Bradley has willpower. He has this burning desire. He seems like a really competitive person and a burning desire to win. Um, so I just see this fight being either very good or very boring, and I'm willing to take the gamble that both fighters are going to bring it and have something to prove. Also, Marquez has added fuel because he's trying to be the first Mexican to win titles in the, I think, 5 weight classes or something like that. So good fight. I really like this. In at number two, just announced Danny Garcia, Lucas Matisse. I had to put this before the other previous fights because both fighters are arguably undefeated. Lucas Matisse has 2 losses, one to Devin Alexander, one to Zab Judah. If you ask a lot of common fans and boxing fans, analysts, they will say Lucas Matisse didn't lose to Zab Judah or to Devin Alexander, so arguably Lucas Matisse should be undefeated. Danny Garcia is undefeated. He has all the belts at 140 for the most part. And both are on incredible win streaks. Lucas Matisse is fighting whoever they put in front of him, and he's looking like a steamroller. That's why they call him the Machine. Lucas Matisse blew through Lamont Peterson, who had a great fight. Lamont Peterson had a comeback fight to get the ring rust out against Kendall Holt, and he started off a little bit timid, but Lamont Peterson ended up stopping Kendall Holt, who's a power punching fighter. I didn't expect Lucas Matisse to do away with Lamont Peterson within 3 rounds. I knew it was possible that he would stop Lamont Peterson, but I never thought it would happen in the first 3 rounds. So Lucas Matisse is looking like a bulldozer. And Danny Garcia, I mean, his last fight was tough. When you thought he had the fight in the bag, Zab Judah stepped it up in front of his Brooklyn natives and gave Danny Garcia a tough fight. Danny Garcia did prove that he has a chin in that Zab Judah fight. He was taking some monster shots, and he never even went down. He battled adversity. He formed a cut on his forehead, and he kept with his game plan. He didn't get knocked down, didn't get knocked out, and he was able to win a decision against Zab Judah. And this was a very sharp, accurate Zab Judah, which is very dangerous. Zab Judah also has speed and the ability to hit you from angles, which can be very dangerous. So Danny Garcia, Lucas Matisse. I mean, both fighters have power. Both fighters have said they wanted to fight. Lucas Matisse is looking for that title shot, not an interim belt. He wants the real title. Um, Unfortunately, in the Lamont Peterson fight, Lamont Peterson's title wasn't at stake. So Lucas Matisse has just been searching, disposing of people like Mike Dallas in one round. He was willing to take on Hank Lundy before Hank Lundy withdrew. And Danny Garcia is a rising star as well. He beat Eric Morales twice, first time for the belt. He took Amir Khan's belt via TKO stoppage. It's like two solid fighters on win streaks with something to prove, and just like the title of the whole event suggests, there could be only one. Number one, this is not really a mystery. Floyd Mayweather Jr. versus Canelo Alvarez. Now, this is, I don't even really have to explain this so much. This is just a fight that needs to happen. It's in the same vein as Mayweather versus Pacquiao, but we didn't have to go through, as fans, a whole bunch of bullshit in order to get this fight. The fans clamored for it, and kind of behind closed doors, the fight was made. I remember waking up and I got an alert on my phone saying the fight was done and Mayweather's fighting Canelo in September. There was no backlash, there was no arguing, to my knowledge. The negotiations went smooth and the fight was made. So to me, it was a beautiful thing. Like I said, the fight was made with little hesitation. The public, the fans, we didn't even really have the opportunity to get in the mix, and there was no like opposing sides. There was no tug of war with the fans involved. It just was made, and it's a fight that needs to happen. Mayweather is working on closing his legacy. He had 6 fights left. He fought Robert Guerrero in pretty much a shutout. So that was one of his fights. And now he's taking on a young, strong, undefeated champion in Canelo, who has a whole country behind him. He has an incredible fan base. A fighter who they've been building up for quite some time. Canelo stepping in the ring. At first, it was smaller people and people who were a little bit out of prime. But Canelo has a very solid win over Austin Trout. That's definitely an opponent who came to fight, who was undefeated at the time, a slick fighter. And Austin Trout couldn't hurt Canelo, but Canelo did hurt Austin Trout, even though Austin Trout kind of regained his composure and went on to lose a decision. So, again, for those reasons, this fight is number one. Floyd, Canelo, both undefeated. Um, a lot of people also complain about Floyd Mayweather's selection process. They say he cherry picks. Um, Based on how Canelo's been looking and how he's been improving fight by fight, there's no way you could really say this is a cherry pick fight. I mean, I don't know why you being the smaller person, i.e. Floyd Mayweather, would want to cherry pick Canelo, who's undefeated, who looks strong, who's built like a mule, and has been hurting a lot of his opponents, has a high KO ratio, and rehydrates to over 170 pounds. I mean, I really don't see how that's a cherry pick. So it's a good fight for Mayweather's legacy if he can win. It's a good fight for Canelo to gauge where he actually is against somebody who's more skilled than him. Because previously Canelo fought some people, and it looks like he had superior boxing. The first person where I would say I initially going into the fight thought he was clearly a better boxer would be Austin Trout. I thought Austin Trout was slicker.